Entering the Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast. This for UFC Fight Night Beijing from mainland China. Blaydes versus Ngannou 2, a rematch that nobody was really expecting. Cody Saftic here, as always, for every single episode. We've never had an episode with one of us absent, so I think people are used to it by now. I think we would just cancel if one of us wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, I've often thought about it, actually. Like, if you were absent or if I was absent, what would the show go on? I don't know. Would we bring in Kent, you know, Hollywood main event Kent? Would he come in maybe to give a break?
Would Pogi Rob come in with some hot takes?
I offered to bring in Pogi Rob one time, and you and Pat and Mayo, that's what I remember, vetoed it despite me going to bat for Pogi Rob and saying that he'd have a hot take.
I vetoed nothing. Most people don't know Pogi Rob. He's going to love this, by the way. He listens to every single episode. So.
Let's make him some money here, because this is potentially a very lucrative card. But it's a tough card. And that's why I am glad to be sitting here with you, Paul Shaughnessy, because Keto Paul knows it all. And I need you to help me break down this and find the best value.
I do not know it all. I will tell you that much. Before we get to all of that stuff, we have some giveaways, as is tradition. So last week's winner is Satchwell116, or sorry, Satchwell6, or it's SSatchWE116. It's written pretty much illegibly right here.
The main thing is you got DK bucks.
You got DK bucks. I don't know if you have them yet, but they're coming. For this week's giveaway, it's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our American friends. Our Thanksgiving as Canadians was about a month ago or so. What are you thankful for in the MMA world this year? For me, I'll go first. I'm not eligible to win any of this because I would win all of the DK bucks every single time. I would rig the deck.
You're a rigger,
and trigger people. I am thankful, clearly, for Khabib having the belt. I have talked so much shit over the last, 7, 8 years about this guy, and it all came to fruition this year. And everyone has to bow down to me calling it. I've been calling it since like I think my earliest tweet about him being a champion was like 2012. Like, I have been all up over this guy's nutsack, and now he is getting the respect he deserves. So that is what I am thankful for.
That is very impressive. That is a good giveaway as well. What are you thankful for? Very, very heartwarming.
So give us your DK handle, give the show a like. What are you thankful for in the MMA world this year?
That's good, because my idea for the original giveaway, Paul Shaughnessy, was because it is Thanksgiving, a lot of us, we love to have a nice turkey dinner. But those of us who are not fortunate enough to have a nice family by our side, generally like to go Chinese takeout. That is the way to go on these holidays. Let me take it. Nothing beats Chinese takeout. Always open, always there for you in your time of need. What name on this card most sounds like something you might order at a Chinese takeout?
I feel as though now you're confusing people, though, because now people are thinking that there's two giveaways.
What are you thankful for?
There's only one giveaway, and it's my giveaway. What are you thankful for in the MMA world this year?
I don't know.
Just thankless.
Yeah, thankless. Well, because what do you say I'm thankful for? I'm thankful Justin Gaethje sacrificed so many brain cells. Like, is that something you're thankful for? Mm-hmm. I'd be thankful for, you know what? I'm thankful for, it's been a great year. And I know the year's winding down. We've been on a good little stretch here, so I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood here. But it's been a fucking good year, dude. So let's just close it out and continue the run. And that's what I'm thankful for, that things have been going our way. The fans have been tuning in. They've been listening. They've been supporting. And you can continue to like the show. Like it. Leave your DK handle. Leave what you're thankful for. I'm thankful for the fans of Bookie Beatdown, and which is now the Dogger Pass podcast. But let's get down to Blaydes.
Trying to get everybody
Blaydes
to
versus
cry.
Ngannou.
Cody's trying to get everybody to cry. You know what? You said it was a good year, but 2018 did not start all that well for me as an avid supporter of my boy Frankie Murder. Frankie Murder, last couple times out, has shown up, and he's been Frankie Misdemeanor. Just doesn't have the edge.
I like that.
You know, he got shut down by Stipe, but I thought in that fight he showed the heart and the drive to at least dog-tired, survive, get deep into the fight. And I thought that was a good thing. And then he came out against Derek Lewis, and it was just like, there's a mental issue going on here. Like, this guy is in his own head. So, like, now we have him taking on Blaydes, a fight that he already won, obviously by doctor stoppage after round 2. And Blaydes' eye was annihilated. So anybody was like, that was a terrible doctor stoppage. Just like,
No,
he couldn't see. He couldn't see. Blaydes is a favorite here, minus 235, taking on Frankie Misdemeanor, who is 7,500 and plus 195. You know.
Are you aborting the
I
ship?
can't abort. I can't leave the ship. It's not in my DNA. It is not part of my personality to do it. I just hope Frankie Murder shows back up again. And you know what? People maybe, most people I know are on Blaydes this time. Blaydes has made so many improvements since the last fight. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. I'm impressed by him. I see the talent. When they made that fight a while ago, we were kind of like, this is like one of those like Phil Davis versus Gustafsson fights. Like, these guys are going to fight again down the road. They're like the 2 best prospects in the heavyweight division. And nobody thought they were going to be fighting again this soon. The one, and everybody is on Blaydes, and I get it. I get it. Francis Ngannou has looked awful his last 2 times out, especially that last fight specifically. Like, he just couldn't pull the trigger. He just looked like he was in his own head. I get it.
So why do you back him?
Only Frankie Murder knows what type of guy he's going to be on Saturday night. For us, I think it's like Friday night. Like, there's super early lock on this card because it's in China.
No, listen, dude, it's an interesting fight because especially I think a lot
if
of
he shows up the way that he was leading up before I guess he probably bought into his own hype. I think we're competitive again. I think he can win this fight. And I think he can batter him again. Like, think about what happened the first time. Blaydes was able to take him down, but he was able to get back to his feet. Frankie, before he really fell in love with the power, we always talked about how he's really good at conserving energy, maintaining range. And then he knocks out Andrei Arlovski. He knocks out Alistair Overeem in the first round. And, you know, he gets all these early first-round finishes where he just explodes on people. But, like, that wasn't what was really impressive about him when he first started. When he fought against Blaydes, was that this guy takes his time. He knows that he can't go at that type of pace over the course of 3 rounds.
Yeah, he's got a good guard.
So if he can go back to what he was before, I don't know if he is. Only he really knows if he's gotten over the mental hurdles. Because that's all I really saw in the Derek Lewis fight, is that this guy has lost all confidence in himself.
Yeah, you know what?
He still has the skills. He still has the ability. And if everybody's going one way, I'm gonna be on the Frankie Murder train one last time.
Well, it's an interesting take, actually, because a lot of people are talking about that confidence, and Francis Ngannou looks like he's a confidence-based fighter. When he's going out there and taking on guys like Boyan and Anthony Hamilton, and guys that he has a clear advantage of, he's confident going in, and the results speak for themselves. Arlovski and Overeem, those are 2 big wins for him. Again, guys that probably can't take the kind of heat that he packed, and he's confident, goes in there. The confidence needs to be gone, and that's a big, big issue. But he has a win over Blaydes. So maybe he goes in there thinking, listen, I've beaten this guy before. I know what he presents, and I know how to shut him down. I know how to get back up. When I do get taken down, I will eventually get back up, and I'm going to make this guy pay. However, I got to go the other way, man. I mean, this is a tale of 2 prospects. This is a tale of Francis Ngannou making his UFC debut. He beat Luis Henrique, and Curtis Blaydes was his 2nd fight in the UFC. And Curtis Blaydes, that was his UFC debut. That's the tale of 2 prospects fighting on that day. The thing is that Ngannou beats him on that day. He lands those punches. Couple notable things there is that, one, Curtis Blaydes was coming out of Junior College National Wrestling Championship in 2012, and he was also undefeated 44-0 his senior year of high school, like 2011, whatever it may be, and was a former Illinois State Wrestling champion. Francis Ngannou never started physically training until 2012.
Yeah, he's working the salt mines of Cameroon, I believe.
Well, he left Cameroon and he was homeless in Paris, and then he actually tried to be a pro boxer at first. And he was getting in sparring rounds with Carlos Takam, and he just got lit up. Like, wasn't a finesse puncher.
They're like, let's just put smaller gloves on you.
Let's just put this guy in an MMA cage where guys have no stand up, and he'll literally just be able to touch them twice. And he goes 1-1 his first 2 pro fights because again, he submits one of those guys quick. And one of those guys is able to take him down and control him. So we knew he had takedown problems going into his UFC career, but it's not that it's been a padded run, because again, Arlovski and Overeem, those are big wins, but he's had a lot of just tailor-made matchups for him. And now that you see Miocic take him out 5, you mentioned that he was really good at conserving energy, and I completely agree. The guy moves very almost methodically, like he's conserving a lot. He's waiting, and then he unloads with those big punches. There's not even much load up He just unwinds with those big shots on you, and he does a lot of damage. But after Mayo took him down repeatedly, 6 takedowns in that fight, he really tired him out. And it wasn't that he was completely gassed, but he was completely gassed. He was tired. He had some moments against Stipe, but his cardio certainly failed him in that fight. And then the Derek Lewis fight, now he's thinking about it. Now he doesn't. I think he landed 11 significant strikes against Derek Lewis over the course of 15 minutes. In fact, he's only landed more than 25 significant strikes once in 8 UFC fights, because normally he knocks those guys out. The only time he's landed more than 25 significant strikes was the fight against Blaydes. But Blaydes has come a long way. That was Blaydes' UFC debut. He's won 6 straight since. Ngannou won that fight and overall had a 6-fight winning streak before losing to Stipe for his heavyweight title. 6-fight UFC wins anyways. Yep. So what I'm saying is, one guy's trajectory, Ngannou, he goes up after that fight a little bit, and then he gets exposed. Whereas Blaydes just keep going. Blaydes is 27 years old. At heavyweight, that is crazy. But also, we used to talk about Ngannou being the young heavyweight. Ngannou's 32. There's a 5-year difference. Blaydes has had the wrestling before. Now he's throwing in the striking. Training at Elevation Fight Team in Denver. His cardio is phenomenal. He pushes a tremendous pace. People will say, oh, what about the Daniel Malanchuk fight? That's a perfect example of this guy's growth. He looked fucking awful against Daniel Malanchuk, but look how he's progressively gotten better. Alexei Olenek, not an easy out. In fact, Alexei Olenek might surprise a guy like Francis Ngannou. You never know, but he smokes him. Mark Hunt, you want to talk about this guy's chin? He takes Mark Hunt's shots, and he wobbles a little bit, but he takes them. The first time he fought Francis Ngannou, nobody takes Francis Ngannou's punches, but he did. He didn't get knocked out. He got TKO because his eye swole shut. The guy's got a hell of a chin on him. The wrestling's there, the cardio's there, the striking's ever developing. 27 years old, he's confident. This is a 5-round main event fight. I think he puts it on him. I think he puts it on him, and whether he's getting takedowns and just working him, his ground and pound's got nasty lately. The OVEREEM fight. Here's another interesting stat about Curtis Blaydes. 6-fight winning streak he's on right now. 4 wins by TKO. All 4 of those wins by TKO outside of the first round. Second round finishes. He finished OVEREEM in the 3rd round. This guy just keeps putting it on you. And that's what Francis Ngannou doesn't need at this stage in his career. He doesn't need someone with great cardio and great wrestling. Bad spot for him. They should have matched him up with a striker that would have stood with him and just hope to God the guy's willing to throw those hands again. But he's a low-volume puncher that just relies on his power, and that's not a good enough spot.
I'll be praying for Frankie Ngannou to get a first-round knockout, and he's back, baby. If he gets a first-round knockout here, get the hype machine ready again.
I'll give you one thing. I got Blaydes. I'll be playing Blaydes, but $7,500 Francis Ngannou, like, ooh, that's tasty.
It's a GPP type of play, man.
Like $7,500.
If he wins, it's gonna be a knockout. He's not gonna go. He's probably not gonna go 5 rounds and win that way. But hell, we said the same thing about Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou, that like somebody was getting finished, and literally nothing happened in that entire fight. So
well, Stipe and Ngannou went the distance too. Ngannou's actually never been finished in his career, so it could go 5. And if it does go 5, it's gonna be 5 with Blaydes on top.
Oh yeah, if it goes 5, I am not feeling good about Francis Ngannou. I'll tell you that much.
But I hear you. DK value is it's certainly there.
We have still in the heavyweight division. We have Sergey Pavlovich taking on Alistair Overeem. Pavlovich is 8,200 on DraftKings, a -130 favorite against the veteran Overeem, who is 8,000 and plus 110. Watching tape on Pavlovich, guy's a freaking maniac. Oh yeah, he is just throwing heaters all the time. So I'm actually kind of surprised that first off, the odds for the under 1.5 rounds here is actually a pick'em right now, which I'm kind of surprised. I know that Reem sometimes will take his time, but it's like the style that I see from Pavlovich is like he's just gonna come bombing forward. In most of the footage that I've seen, that's all he does. Maybe he comes in scared because he's like, okay, I'm actually taking on.
I'm fighting Alistair Overeem.
I'm taking on him. Yeah. So that's a possibility for sure. But you also know that where's the real problem with Overeem is that chin, his inability to take damage. So if you're Pavlovich, you'd be like, maybe I can eat a couple shots on my way in and bomb on him. It's hard for me to pick a guy who just looks so aggressive and sloppy as a striker. It's heavyweight, so these things, I feel as though this fight is getting finished, whether it's Overeem just like countering him really smartly because he's the better striker and the more well-versed in MMA in general, or if it's Pavlovich just landing a big heater and knocking him out. So it's a fight that you probably should get onto your rosters. Some of my early lineups that I've made, I've just kind of went around this. Maybe I'll change by the time we get around this. But like I haven't been able to really work this in based on like how the build has went for me. But this is a fight that I kind of want to be invested in for sure. I think the under 1.5 rounds is my play that I would have on this. Oh, I should say that odds and lines are subject to change. See website for actual odds. If you or anybody you know has a gambling problem and needs help or is asking for help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. I forgot to add that in to the beginning of the show.
Give me that number, Paul Shaughnessy, because I got a fucking problem. I'm Alistair Overeem.
Under 1.5 rounds, minus 110. Dial it up.
Yeah. Honestly, I'll take a poke at Alistair Overeem, but this is more than likely on the past situation. I can see Pavlovich getting it done, but he's got a lot of things going against him. First of all, bright lights, dude. UFC debut, undefeated in his career so far. Most of those first round stoppages. Most of those, he's got like 3 fights that he's finished within 1 minute. He's a quick starter. So he's got 3 decision victories, one being his last fight was a 5-rounder. So it looks like he can sustain a pace. It looks like he's got decent cardio. But I think, as you mentioned it, he's really aggressive and he's very wild. He's almost very, I don't want to say sloppy, but striking's not his first. Is not his first nature, right? He's a Greco-Roman wrestling champion from Russia. I say champion very loosely because it's not like he's got any like bona fide credentials, but comes from a wrestling base. He's trained with a lot of decent guys out of Moscow, and he spent a little bit of time with like Khabib's team, Eagles MMA. He seems to be pretty functional, only 26 years old. The things that are going against him here is that, limited tape coming in, had a lot of first-round finishes, had a lot of guys that you were able to just overwhelm. His last opponent in Fight Nights Global, where he is the heavyweight champion, that guy was competent, but, you know, he's a karate-based striker, not overly impressive. And you're going from that, probably the biggest win of your career, to Alistair Overeem, former K1 level champion. The 3 times in his career that he stepped up and fought in decent level or okay level opposition is actually the 3 times in his career that he's gone the distance. So he's able to smoke out cans, but you know who else is able to smoke out cans? Alistair Overeem.
Yeah.
It's just what you do when you're aggressive, strong fighter. So the other thing is Fight Night Global, he won a tournament to determine the first ever heavyweight champ, wins that, defends the belt 1 time, and then Fight Nights Global ends up going through some like financial trouble. So they more or less fold up as an operation, cancel a lot of their cards. He hasn't fought in a year. And this fight was only announced like 4 weeks ago. So I'm not saying he's going to be in bad shape. If you watch footage on him, the guy looks like he's in tremendous shape. But it's a little...
Taking his vitamins.
Yeah, and at one time, Alistair Overeem was too.
He takes his strength and training program very seriously.
If this fight took place in Dream in 2011, Overeem crushes him with the body first round, no doubt about it. But in this day and age, 38-year-old Overeem, coming off 2 bad losses.
With USADA in place.
Yeah, but... if he's coming in 4 weeks and he's been in the testing pool, then he's in it as well. He hasn't fought in a year, so there could be a little bit of ring rust. He's now taking on the toughest fight of his career, the biggest fight of his career, the brightest lights of his career in China, which is a foreign country to him. There's a lot of things going against him, whereas Alistair Overeem's fought all over the world. He's a seasoned veteran. We know how good he's capable of being. The different Reem nowadays, who's a lot more patient, that could play out in a situation like this, because this kid comes at him super aggressive, then Reem's going to counter and beat him. But this is a little feeling just like the pit of me. Just deep.
Like last week's Heinisch versus...
which turned out to be...
Worked out? Yeah. Good call by you.
It's a similar feeling. But remember Dmitry Smolyak?
Smelly jack off.
Smolyak on paper had the goods. He was also like he was a Russian master of sport in freestyle wrestling. Yeah, I don't know why.
They hand those things out with their Happy Meals in Russia if they have McDonald's there.
They don't, but in this case,
somebody
has somehow got it. On paper, he looks good. He's got the size. He's like 6'5", 255. All of his wins on the regional scene are just smoking dudes out like 30 seconds, minute. It looks like he's got the goods on paper. He shows up to the big dance, and it turns out he's absolutely terrible. And I'm not saying that's the case with Pavlovich. I'm really not. But what I'm saying is that there's the unknown there. There's the unknown that he's been smashing guys in the Russian regional and has looked good there. But he's a strike first, wrestle second kind of guy. And against Overeem, he should be wrestling first. But because he's not used to going into fights and using that wrestling primarily, he gets engaged in one of these Geez, everyone tells me Overeem can't take a punch. Geez, everyone tells me Overeem's spotty. I'm going to overwhelm him. Try to overwhelm him, dude. The knee's still there. The left body kick's still there. But beyond that, man, he packs a heavy punch. He's an experienced guy. Could Overeem get knocked out here? Yeah, absolutely. And the $8,200 on PAVLOVICH is not a bad price at all. But again, for only $8,000, you could take the chance on Alistair Overeem. And if he wins, he can knock. This is the way I'm honestly seeing it. If PAVLOVICH wins, he blasts out Overeem quick. Yep. If Overeem wins,
he could win a decision.
He could blast him out quick, but he could also win that decision.
Yep.
He could also TKO in the second or third round. Once this guy gets tired, once he botches a couple takedown attempts, and once he realizes that standing at range with Alistair Overeem is a lot different than anything he's faced before, plus the year-long absence, this is probably a stay away, but it's the co-main event on a card that you're not too excited for. So you want some action on it because it is a nice-looking fight. And I got to go with the guy who's what, 8-7 in the UFC. That's a lot of experience. He's got more UFC experience than this guy's got overall experience. Alistair Overeem's been fighting since 1999. Now maybe he's going to go out here and get dusted, and that's going to be the end of him. 3 straight losses, 3 knockout losses.
And this is like a low, like a name that's not that's not known yet. Like this would be the end of the line.
This could be the end for Alistair Overeem, but I don't get the feeling he's all the way shot, and I'll give him one last shot.
Fair enough. We have Song Yadong taking on Vince Morales. Song Yadong, 9,100 on DraftKings and a -460 favorite. Vince Morales is 7,100 and plus 365. Song Yadong hasn't really fought anybody, but he's looked good in the performances that he has had in the UFC. There's some good good props on this for him to finish inside the distance. Vince Morales, he's coming off of a win in Bellator, but the fight before that, I believe he had a loss.
Domingo Pilarte. Dana White's contender series?
Yeah, so like,
subbed him.
Let's call it a spade. What is going on here, Cody? Ooh. They're flying a guy over here with a real spotty record to take on the local guy who's shown a little bit of promise. Now I think he's training out of Team Alpha Male. He was doing that leading up to the last fight, and he looked great when he blasted out Felipe Arantes in the second round. This is Yadong. It's all Yadong.
Yeah.
I'm rostering him up.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows.
I'm all in on it.
Everybody knows Paul Shaughnessy loves Yadong.
Like it's
this goes back to
-460 with the betting and stuff. Like of course, like that's a little bit wide, but I feel pretty safe that he gets the win here. I know exactly, obviously, this is a setup fight. It's whether he gets it done, and whether he gets it done for DraftKings purposes. 9,100. He's a jump down from some of these other fighters that I'm sure we're probably going to agree are just terrible plays in general. And he's already shown the upside. Like I think he averages like 108 points per fight. So
yeah,
like he's a smash play on this card.
Yeah, he's looked good so far in his UFC career, 2-0. He's only 20 years old. I mean, he is super young. I've seen a couple places where he's listed at like 22, a couple places he's listed as 20, but all the same, I think we can agree, pretty young talent. Already a lot of pro MMA experience on his record, but you know, developing, young, aggressive. I like him as far as DK goes because for $9,100, he's going to go for the finish. He's most definitely going to go for it. His nickname's the Terminator, and for good reason. Like he only really knows one direction at this stage, and that's forward. And I think when you're a young fighter who's hungry and explosive, you want those finishes. You go hunting for them. As you get a little bit of age, as you get a little bit of experience, you figure out ring IQ, you get a little bit more savvy in there. But in these spots where they're fighting guys that are overmatched, that's what you want. This would have been a very interesting play because Song Yadong was initially supposed to take on Frankie Saenz. And Frankie Saenz at least poses problems in that, you know, he's got a credible wrestling base. He's a guy that's fought at the highest level for a very long time.
He's a savvy veteran.
Yeah, he's old, but he's got experience. And he's a durable guy as well. So can the 20-year-old kid take on this savvy, experienced, grindy wrestler from Arizona who's going to show him a couple tricks? Interesting fight. But Song Yadong taking on late replacement Vince Morales, who's coming out of Oregon. I'm not sure if his head coach is still Tony Franklin, but that's the last listed head coach.
On
right. He did not look overly good in his Dana White Contender Series fight. Then what you have to take in consideration is that he loses that fight. A little bit of name cachet. You run Fight Pass. Trust me, you want to book these guys that don't make the Ultimate Fighter, that don't make Dana White, because they're not signed to a major promotion and they don't have a contract, but they got a little bit of name exposure. Vince Morales gets a Bellator fight. He wins said Bellator fight. He looks okay in that Bellator fight. They didn't even give him a contract. They just let him, they gave him a one-off. He won it, and they weren't willing to sign him. Off you go back to the UFC. Now you're taking a short notice. They're going to send you all the way to China. The time difference in China is 12 hours. A friend of mine has been there the last year, and communicating with them, it's always opposite. You know, if it's 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 8 o'clock at night, whatever the case. You're taking something on short notice. A lot of these guys would have to go out there and get, you know, acclimated to it a little bit, kind of get the jet lag out of your system. Morales taking the fight on short notice, probably being underprepared to begin with, taking on a guy who looks like a prospect on a card where they want to showcase young Chinese prospects. I was talking to somebody the other day.
You know they're flying Vince Morales and his team over there and coach as well.
Yeah.
probably like in the center seat, like they're making it uncomfortable. He's getting sent over to job out to the local guy. Like that's... We see this story a million times. We were in Argentina last week. The same thing played out in Argentina. It's like, we know UFC didn't always used to set up these setup fights, but they've taken a little page out of what Bellator has been doing for years. And they're not set up to the same degree, but like you got to grow the market. So yeah, you give them what is at least a winnable fight. Sometimes these guys are just so bad that you can't get a winnable fight. But like Song Yadong is showing some promise.
You know what I see it as? I see the UFC saying, we're going to go into a foreign market. We're going to go into South America. We're going to go into, pull into a lesser extent. It's, you know, they have killer talent. But this is another card, China. You know, maybe it's not great talent. We're going to send the worst fighters in the UFC, in the respective divisions. We're going to send the worst guys. And those worst guys are going to take on the best Chinese prospects. The catch is, some of these Chinese prospects cannot beat the worst guy in the UFC.
For sure.
And we said that last week on the South American card.
Laureano Staropoli.
No, that one we
taking on Aldana. We were all over that one.
That one was easy. The one that I was alluding to was Austin Arnett, because we talked about the other South American fighters taking out these, you know, gimme matchups, and we talked about how Aldana is fucking shit. He was not going in there to put up a win. It wasn't going to happen. He took more of a beating than I thought he was. Yep. You know, he showed some heart. But he was not there to win. But when it came to Austin Arnett against Bandonite, it was Austin Arnett's not a bump. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, but he's gone the distance with a guy like Hakeem Dawodu. He's fought, you know, Corey Sandhagen, better talent than he's currently taken in Humberto Bandonite. So you want to avoid that because this guy's Bandonite probably can't beat that lower level. You know what? He beat Martin Bravo. What's he up to? And then got dusted by Gabriel Benitez, and now has lost it. It turns out he can't beat the worst guy in the UFC. This is another similar spot. However, Song Yadong can beat the worst guy in the UFC. He's already shown us that
he can beat credible people.
Felipe Arantes is no walkover. And not only did he beat him in a spot that a lot of people were considering Arantes has way too much experience for this young kid, he smashed him. He looked fantastic. In fact, Arantes after the fight retired. And that's almost an acknowledgement of, yo, this 20-year-old whippersnapper just dusted me. And I at least went down 4 times against Josh Emmett and fought on. And I never felt the kind of pressure that this kid. The game changes. I'm going to pass the torch. He's one of those next future, you know, good contender type fighters from Asia. Is he world champion? I don't know. He's only 20. He's got a lot of time to develop. But he looks good, and this is a spot where he's no longer taking on Frankie Saenz. He's taking on what should be a very winnable fight for him. So, yeah, play it.
We have Li Jingliang taking on David Zawada. Jingliang is 8,500 in DraftKings, minus 185 favorite. Zawada is 7,700 and plus 160. Jingliang is coming off of a win over Abe, but that one was dicey and super close. And obviously he took an L against Jake Matthews. Interesting little...
The dirtiest fight of all time.
Yeah, he's eye gouging.
He was trying everything.
For sure. This guy comes to fight. His fights are usually pretty fast paced. Interesting thing about him is that none of the guys that he's beaten on the UFC roster none of the guys that he's beaten in the UFC still have a job in the UFC. So he's nothing too special. But I also think that they've set him up with a fight that is definitely winnable. This is a fight I've really struggled to have a really firm grasp of, so I'm going to let you take it away and maybe bounce off of you.
Yeah, I've been bouncing around a little bit. Jingliang Li's giving me stomach ulcers, dude, because it's nerve-wracking watching his fights, even when he is winning. And you're right. He's beating guys that are no longer employed in the UFC. But even like Bobby Nash and Frank Camacho, like these guys all drop him. These guys all hurt him. These all guys put him in dicey situations. Nakamura, that 3rd-round back take to rear naked choke. He lets you down in some spots. He just barely holds on in other spots. He's generally always a big favorite because he overmatches his opponent. you know, he's limited, but he's not bad, especially when you're talking about Chinese talent. He's one of the better guys. He can hang at the UFC level. It's just he's kind of hanging at the bottom of the UFC level. Yeah. Decent little, you know, won his last fight against Daichiabe, like you said, another one of these close fights. But one thing about Lee is that he is strong, man. He's a big, strong welterweight. His face, I mean, we always talk about guys that have that kind of chin built like that. And in Dober's case, he can take a great shot. Jingliang's Lee's case, he can take a great shot. He gets wobbled a lot. He gets floored from time to time. But it's not like these guys go out there and clean knock him out for the most part. You know, he's a fairly durable fighter. But his size and his grit should be what's going to be able to carry over a guy like David Zawada. Zawada's tough. I don't know that I would call him undersized for 170 pounds, but he's not. He doesn't got Lee's size. He comes from KSW. He was good in KSW. He was okay in KSW, decent record anyways. Makes his UFC debut short notice, Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. And I thought he posed Roberts problems, but everybody kind of does. And it's a fight of the night. It's a good fight. It's back and forth. He has moments. And it's also a fight that ends up being, I think, fight of the night. Loses a split. It is what it is. He's got probably a little bit of momentum coming into this fight, but he's got to come to China now. He's taking on the local fan favorite, the guy that's, you know, basically a hero over there. And I honestly just feel like he's going to have to mix in his takedowns in order to really get Lee's respect with his striking. And I don't know that he's strong enough to actually do that. So dragging Jingliang Lee down to the ground is a problem. And when you talk about guys like Frank Camacho and Bobby Nash, they're quick starters. They get in there and they do everything they can. The thing is, they call him the Leech. And it's a great nickname because he just sucks the blood right out of you, man. He literally, if you don't knock him out, and most of the time you don't knock him out, he gets right back up. He just keeps coming and he wears it out of you. And I honestly think that size is going to be a problem against Zawada. I wouldn't write Zawada off completely. In fact, I would kind of just little bit of action on Lee, but mostly avoid. With 8,500, it's tempting for Lee. The minus 185, not a hugest fan, but it is what it is. And as far as Zawada goes, I'm going to say pass on him, but if you're a Zawada supporter and you think that he might be able to get, if you get Lee to the ground, he's strong. He might just muscle his way back up, but there's no technique there. So maybe you can expose him a little bit there, but there's just too much strength. And I honestly think that'll be the deciding factor, and that's what gets him the win.
We have KENAN taking on Alex Morono. KENAN is 8,300 on DraftKings. Alex Morono is 7,900, and it is a straight pick'em between these two guys, and I can't really blame the odds makers or whoever's betting on whatever side. I think it's really hard to have a good feel for this one. KENAN was coming into the UFC on a 2-fight losing streak.
Strange, right? And
then now he's on a 2-fight winning streak in the UFC, but he has fought bums. The bums of the bums. So we really can't take much away from his record. Alex Morono, anytime he's taken on anybody half decent, he's taken the L. He's got, you know, the win over Josh Berkman, but he's like, that's the shell of 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 Josh Berkman at that point in his career. Last fight was almost laughable in the sense that, like, Morono, we always have kind of touted him as like, oh, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Jordan Mean whipped that ass on the ground. Like, he dominated him pillar to post, like every facet of the game, especially on the ground, where it's just like, oh, Morono's supposed to have something here. He got dominated down there too. So, and Morono's chin has been questionable in the past, obviously, as well. Nico Price knocked that guy into a different realm when they fought against each other. I know that's listed as a no contest, but we all know what went down in that fight. I just don't know how good KENAN is. I don't think he's very good at all. But does he have to be really good to get by Morono? No, he doesn't. I think Morono is where I would lean, especially when you have 7,900 on DraftKings, if I was going to. But I think this is going to be a competitive fight. I think it goes to decision. This is a fight I'm probably just avoiding altogether. I just don't see the high upside in terms of scoring. So that's kind of my take on this fight. It's a straight pick 'em for a reason. It's a tough call, but if I had to roster one of these guys, it would be Morono at 7,900.
Yeah. Well, honestly, competitive fight, at least certainly on paper. And I feel like it's going to be a finish. So you're going to probably want to roster some shares, at least both these guys. I'm going to go with Alex Morono myself. KENAN, though, he is aggressive and he is a finisher from his 2 fights in the UFC. You're right, dude. How many people... I would challenge the audience to try to find a situation where somebody was signed to the UFC on a 2-fight losing streak,
and then
in the last 10 years. Like, you can't go back to back in the day where it's like you needed anybody to fight.
It was probably one of these Ultimate Fighter shows that has happened.
Could be, but you'd have to do some research to figure it out,
For sure.
Because it's not something that's just on the tip of your tongue.
No.
You don't usually come to UFC. Now, UFC's in China. They need somebody, not short notice, but we got to fill this card. We need people that people are going to come see. This kid's exciting. Got an exciting style, finishing style. He'll get the crowd going. Let's put him in the UFC. And he should get smoked by Bobby Nash. But he kills Nash, who's very suspect chin-wise, in 15 seconds. It looks fantastic. Okay, let's build on that. You just got to win over a guy that we actually thought he was going to lose to. Let's build off that. Let's give him the Aldana treatment. There's a free win. Here's a free win for you. Again, second round finish. And Aldana actually proved over the weekend, like, he's got some durability. He can take a punch, but this kid buzzes through him. So am I super confident that Alex Morono is durable enough that this kid won't just go there and buzzsaw through him? No, not necessarily. But Morono's got more ways to win this fight. He don't want a nice little shindig fight, scrap, standing. He's not very technical. He wings his punches. Does he have a suspect chin? I think he's got an okay chin. But yeah, Nico Price definitely blasted him. We've seen him get hurt before, but we've seen him take shots before. He likes to make it a dirty fight. The black belt, is he a good black belt world class? No. Is he serviceable? Sure. It would take a really good black belt to dominate Jordan Mein on the ground because Jordan Mein's a stud on the ground. But Alex Morono against Josh Berkman, he stuns him and he gets the submission. He's capable of doing both. In this particular spot, I think he can do that against Song Kenan. Song Kenan, again, won 2 fights in the UFC. Prior to that, he lost, and he was not looking good against mediocre Australian talent. You can't really back him here. So with Morono, if the fight hits the ground, I got to go Morono. If the fight stays standing, I just think that he's going to be able to take enough shots to close that distance and get a hold of him. Is this a Morono lock? Surefire? No dice. But something interesting from last week's card in South America was you just really had to bet the wrestler. You just had to bet the fighter who even had a small, on-paper perceived wrestling advantage, and they pretty much all won. And this is another situation where Morono does not have the wrestling advantage, but he does have the jiu-jitsu advantage. He does have the grappling advantage. And there's another fight in particular that we're going to talk about when we get down to that. Sometimes that's all you need against an opponent that's overmatched on the ground and maybe doesn't know what they're doing. So I got to go with Morono, and he's the potential to score big. So the $7,900 price tag, it's tempting for sure, but this could also be a greasy, why did I pick Brendan Morono type fight? Alex Morono, sorry.
You know what price is not enticing to me? Lauren Mueller, 9,200 on DraftKings, minus 410 favorite, taking on Wu Yanan, 7,000 plus 330. Before we even say anything, Wu Yanan, there's an old saying that we have on this show. Friends don't let friends bet on people who lost to Gina Mazzani. Wu Yanan is probably the worst women's bantamweight on the roster. And she's taking on Mueller. Mueller should win this. She's kind of a grinder. She sticks to a game plan. She barrels forward. I see this fight going to decision. I see it being Mueller, very convincing 30-27 victory, at least 30-27. And that's kind of how I see it playing out. But 9,200, I have Yadong, who has already showed us his high upside in terms of scoring capabilities. There's no way I'm rostering Mueller. I know Mueller actually has, out of a bunch of these ladies fights and the high-priced women's fights, I do actually prefer her to some of the other ones that we'll talk about a little bit later down the card, because her path to victory probably is push forward, get the takedowns, secure takedowns. So at least she can bank up points out. I prefer her to, Weili Zhang and Yan Xiaonan. When we move forward, we'll talk about those fights because of the stylistic matchup. But still, I'm paying for Yadong, and that's it. I'm not paying up for Mueller. Mueller by decision, I think, is pretty clearly the most reasonable outcome that we could expect from this fight.
Yeah, I don't got much to say about that. I got Mueller. I got Mueller as well. I think she looks okay as a prospect. I'd like to see her get tested. I'd like to see where her ceiling is. I don't know that we know that yet. And this is not a free win. Nothing in MMA ever is. But Wu Yanan is bottom of the barrel. Absolute bottom of the barrel. Gina Mazzani not only defeated her handedly.
Yep.
Gina Mazzani is capable of defeating the bottom of the barrel. And that's exactly what this is. She was initially supposed to take on Shayna Dobson here. Dobson's a fun little exciting fighter, and this would have been a fun little exciting fight.
Striker versus grappler.
Yeah, and Dobson probably would have been able to pick up the victory and come back to an American show, and and say la vie. This girl gets cut. We're going to talk about it in a second here. YAOZONG. It's like you got a contract with them, so you got to give them more than the one fight, but chances are they're packing after this one fight. And I think that's the case here. With Mueller, she looks like she could be good, but she's still young in her career, and she doesn't have a whole lot of experience. So give her some exposure. Let her go out there. Let her get the victory. Her ability to mix in the wrestling with that forward motion striking, that's what's going to get her the victory.
Yep.
It's being able to transition with that grappling. Morono, to a lesser extent, if he can mix in the grappling, these guys are going to have a significant advantage. They've got experience. I mean, this is her second UFC fight, but she has that Dana White Contender Series experience. In Morono's case, it's like he's fought good guys in the UFC. He's got a lot of experience in the UFC. You're going to be able to lean on that. These are not the worst fighters in the UFC. These are low to mid-low level fighters in the UFC, and they might be good enough to beat Chinese prospects. So I'm going to have to go with Mueller. I think the takedowns is going to be the key to victory. I'm interested in playing her on some teams. I know 9,200's a lot, but I get the impression it's going to be a fast-paced fight because she's aggressive. She moves forward. And a lot of the times when you got women bantamweights, women strawweights, whatever the case, even, you know, men flyweight, men bantamweight, there's a lot of transitions, especially on the ground. And ground transitions is how you're going to score a lot of points.
She is the...
On a card like this, you style on the ground against an overwhelmed, unexperienced opponent. Giannis Kunikaya diced her on the ground. Gina Mazzani just held her up against the cage at will. A slightly better opponent, which Mueller is, should take her out and look good doing it. So I would take some shares of that.
Yeah, she's my favorite of the female because of the stylistic
cash
matchup.
Gameplay.
We got good cash gameplay. All right, we got Rashad Coulter taking on your boy, YAOZONG.
Not a cash gameplay.
This is at 205 actually. So both these guys have fought at heavyweight before, and there's like, oh boy, UFC's like that was really bad. Maybe if you guys shed 40 pounds, this could be a little bit of a more interest. You guys could maybe fight at this level. They can't fight at this level. Both of these guys don't belong at this level. It is what it is. Coulter's 8,400 on DraftKings, minus 130 favorite. YAOZONG is 7,800 and plus 110. Lots of action coming in on YAOZONG. And it's hard to feel good.
No, man.
It's hard to feel good about.
It's also hard to feel good if you go
the problem with
other
this
way.
fight, though, is that, like, this fight, which has no business being on a card of this at this level, could really dictate who wins and loses all the DraftKings contests this week. Like, one of these losers is getting bounced.
Which loser?
This is a pink slip fight. This is for, I guess now that they're light heavyweight, this is for who is the worst fighter in the light heavyweight division. Is Coulter versus YAOZONG.
Yeah, you're absolutely
100%.
right. You're absolutely right.
It would have been, regardless of what division these guys were at. Like, these guys have no business. Coulter has like 4 or 5 fights in the UFC, averages 13 points.
Because he's normally getting toasted. He's only got 3 fights,
and then Hugh got 4 points in a second round, was it submission loss? Yes, to Cyril, the incredible Cyril Asker, Cody's boy. Your boy, your brother from another mother. God, this is so bad. But you have to roster these guys, and it's disgusting. But I guess odds value is going to have Hugh as one of the chalk plays on this card. Because he was at like plus 150 earlier in the week. A lot of people have piled on. Now it's down to plus 110. It could go off near a pick'em. Like, that line keeps getting narrowed and narrowed and narrowed. So Coulter, if you like Coulter, he really could box out like a good like 45 to 50% of the field. Like, I think Hugh's going to be that owned on this. It's like it's a fight with like an inside the distance prop that is like one of the best on the cards. Like, the odds makers don't think that this is going to go to the decision. And you have low-level guys. We see it all the time. Like, you see a lot of finishes in low-level fighting because there's just so many gaping holes in these guys' game. I'm interested to see if you have a hot take. Do you have a guy that you really feel good about in this fight, or?
If this fight takes place in Texas, or for that matter, in the States, because it's not going the distance regardless, commission, take them out of it. I got Coulter. I got Coulter, and I don't feel terrible. Little bit bad about myself. I don't feel terrible about it. The fact that it's in China, I don't know, man. Just because, yeah, he could be. The guy's got terrible cardio. First and foremost, it's 3 fights in the UFC. He's lost all 3 of them. We talked about Austin Arnett being on a 3-fight losing streak. There's only a 2-fight losing streak in the UFC. Coulter is the guy that they have kept around for 3 straight losses so that somebody can dust this dude. And Hao Shin Wu, or sorry,
YAOZONG.
Wu Ya. Sorry,
There's a lot of letters on that page.
I know, I got confused there. Hu Yazong, he's the worst heavyweight or light heavyweight on the UFC roster.
Yes.
But he's probably one of, if not the best, Chinese heavyweight or light heavyweight. Not at heavyweight. They got this big sumo guy, Agrigol. He's fun to watch.
I have seen him.
Yeah. But dude, honestly, terrible. It's just a really low level. So you're trying to get him a win, and you're giving him a guy that you've kept around to get somebody a win. But that might not be enough, man. Rashad Coulter probably...
Is this similar to our Staropoli versus Aldana discussion last week?
I think Rashad Coulter has a couple things going for him that are going to be key in this fight, right? And I'm not saying it's going to be a dive situation. It's that when you're 0-3 in the UFC and it's do or die, either you're going to come out really hot and like, I got to get this, or you're going to just fade away and be like, yeah, this wasn't for me. My confidence is shot. I'm 0-3. He's gotten knocked out at all 3 of those losses. 1 in the first round, 2 in the second round. He has not looked overly good. And dude, honestly, in his last fight against Chris De La Roca, there was maybe like a small moment where it was like, damn, this guy don't look all that bad. His hands are okay. He's functional. He seems like an athletic guy, especially as a light heavyweight competing at heavyweight. He moves good for a then heavyweight, and then he gets so tired so fast that it's really hard to root for him. But yeah, I got to take him here in this spot against YAOZONG. YAOZONG's 3-0. And the 3 guys he's fought, I don't know that any of them ever got a victory. He comes from a wrestling background. He apparently was some type of silver medalist at some, Chinese tournament.
Some events.
Yeah, apparently he can.
People were invited to.
Apparently he can wrestle, but we've yet to see it on an MMA stage. And okay, great. This guy.
I saw it in some of the dusty tape, but like it was so low level.
But it's so dusty.
It's
so
bad.
my counter with that is that a lot of people would say, listen, dude. YAOZONG's got a wrestling base. He does. At least it's there. At least he's medaled at some type of tournament. And Rashad Coulter has no ground game. Nothing off of his back. Bad cardio. And, dude, he's got a flyer on the other side of the world.
And he's got to drop 40 pounds, come down to a different weight class.
Yeah, and I think
which is going to affect his cardio even more.
Yeah, 12-hour time difference. Going to be tough. But I'm going to go with him because even though wrestling might be one of his kryptonites, one of his many kryptonites, he's at AKA. He's with Daniel Cormier. That's how he got into fighting. That's his well-documented past, is that him and Cormier are like childhood buddies. He's wrestled a little bit. He's an okay wrestler. He's boxed a little bit. He's an okay boxer. He's got a pro boxing record. He like boxes under the name of Orlando Coulter, I'm pretty sure. But all the same, he's functional. He's just not very good. At the LFA level, he's beating these guys in the first round. But that's a low-level regional scene, and there's just no heavyweights that are not signed to the UFC. But this is that level, dude.
Is that level. It's probably maybe below that level.
YAOZONG's lower that level. Cyril Asker is my boy, but Cyril Asker is not that level. He cannot hang with these guys. He made YAOZONG look terrible. Mm-hmm. He looked like a Cadillac in there against YAOZONG. His grappling was on point. His wrestling was on point. Everything was on point. Where was this guy's vaunted wrestling game against Cyril Asker? It wasn't existent, and he got subbed like nothing. And so whereas where Coulter is terrible, he's fighting better guys than this. He's training with better guys than this, and he's a small heavyweight. Chris De La Roca is 6'4", 265 pounds. He's a big boy. He's gonna tire you out, you know. He landed a lot of punches on De La Roca, but De La Roca took them. And when they were on the ground, De La Roca's a black belt. You know, he's got wins over guys like DJ Linderman prior to getting to the UFC. He's not the world's worst fighter, and he gave him some problems. But Coulter at 205, maybe he has a little bit more gas in the tank. Maybe he's a little bit more bigger. His punches will have a little more zip, and he's taking on a terrible guy. So I'm taking Coulter, $8,400, probably gets it done inside of the distance. Yeah, he's not a parlay piece, but Coulter should get the win here. Cyril Asker, who you could make the argument is the worst or second worst heavyweight in the UFC, styled on this guy. So who's the next worst guy next to Cyril Asker? Probably Coulter, probably also styles on this guy, but it remains to be seen.
I think I may just roster YAOZONG and hope for a dive.
A dive is in play. I hate to say it, but that's what keeps me from pulling the trigger all the way on this.
We have Weili Zhang taking on Jessica Aguilar. Zhang is 9,300 DraftKings minus 470 favorite. Aguilar is 6,900 and plus 375. So when we're talking about Lauren Mueller earlier in terms of styles and matchups and so on and so forth, Mueller, at least we can kind of see the base of how she could pay off that value at $9,200. Problem here is that the better wrestler in this whole ordeal is Aguilar.
All day.
Can she get the takedowns? That's the question. Zhang's decorated striker. She's looked okay. She looks like she belongs at this level. But that type of style, unless she finds a way to get an early finish or something like that, it's just not gonna pay off the bills. It's not gonna pay off that price tag, that lofty $9,300 price tag. Her takedown defense, watching fights on the regional scene and stuff, is very, very questionable. The real question, maybe you usually are an Aguilar whisperer around these parts. Can she land the takedowns here? Because Aguilar could be a decent play if you think that she can, take this fight to the mat and control a couple rounds.
Yeah, this is a prime spot where you can roster up the dog and feel good about it. $375, that's a big price. The $9,300 on DraftKings, that's just reflective of the fact that she's a big favorite on the money line.
Yeah,
there's nothing from her recent win that would suggest that what did she average? 76 points, I think is what she averaged.
Like that.
So if she goes out there and has a similar type performance here against Jessica Aguilar, and you paid $9,300, not worth the value. I would have to avoid that altogether. I think the question that you're asking, Jessica Aguilar, can she get the takedown? Yeah, she can. Question of, will she get the takedown? Different question. Jessica Aguilar has proven to me that she perhaps has very, very, very questionable ring IQ. Her fight with Courtney Casey, she wanted to get that fight to the ground. And in fact, with Aguilar, she wants to get all of her fights to the ground. She's good on the ground, good grappler, good submission defense, decent wrestler. That's her, her ace up her sleeve is that she can take you down, grind you, not get submitted. Against Courtney Casey Sanchez, she does manage to get her to the ground and then proceeds to just stand there and allow Casey to kick at her. It's the world's worst game plan. She loses. It was terrible. And she rebounds from that against Jodie Escobar in a bad fight, a fight that she won, but a bad fight, dude. The thing with the Escobar fight is that when she doesn't succeed on the takedowns, she seems to just like stand out at range and kick at you, and she's entirely too hittable. We saw that in her own fight with Casey and her fight with Claudia Gadelha, is that as far as the outside goes, she does not move her head particularly well. She gets picked off. When I look at Zhang, I feel like that Weili Zhang's kickboxing background, it's a good kickboxing background. I think she's been working extensively on just keeping her fight standing so she can come up, just beat these opponents standing. And I think that's what she'll be able to do against Aguilar. But Aguilar is a savvy veteran with a wrestling advantage. And I've literally just praised for the majority of this card why savvy veterans that hold a wrestling advantage are live dogs. And not only is she a dog, she's a big dog.
She's a big dog, yeah.
So that's worth a look because if she gets the fight to the ground, who's to say she can't submit her? And if she doesn't get the fight to the ground, then just grinding her and pounding her and trying to work a takedown, even if she jumps back up, that's all going to score you points. You got to look at the fact that you got a young fighter in Weili Zhang that hasn't really gone those rounds against a girl that's gone 5 rounds multiple times, has
had world titles, has fought at the top level. At least for what was at that time.
Yeah, exactly. She's got 2 wins over the greatest pound-for-pound women's fighter. Arguably, people will say other people. But all the same, Aguilar is probably, I'm not going to say shot.
Past her prime, she's old.
She's past her prime. She's not shot. She hasn't taken the damage, but she does not fight frequently, and she's fallen to her role of, I'm just going to be the captain of ATT on the women's side and get the next generation ready. And this girl is the next generation. But this is also the type of girl that comes into ATT and needs a girl like Aguilar for guidance and to kind of give for some of that knowledge. And maybe she's going to teach her a lesson here. For $375, it's, it's certainly worth maybe
a poke.
Having a poke. I don't have the number readily available for me on spot, but the fight by distance, I'd be interested in that as well.
I think I saw Zhang at like -188 by decision.
By decision. Yeah.
So it's like they're telling you this fight's going 3 rounds. The only way that she pays off, or that Zhang would pay off that $9,300 price tag, is just absurd amount of volume, which is possible. But you're asking a lot.
I just feel like Aguilar is defensively sound enough that if she is getting bombed on, she can do something to cover.
So I say I hate Zhang as a play.
You know what? Zhang's a terrible play. My last thing, we'll move on. We've already probably spent too much time on this, but Zhang is a play. If you do like Zhang, you've seen the tape, you think that, hey, you know what? She's obviously got the stand-up advantage. She might be able to stuff these takedowns, keep the fight standing. She's just going to outpoint her. I don't disagree. I don't think that if the fight goes 3 rounds and Aguilar does get some takedowns, but Zhang's landing the landing strike standing, we're in China. The judges are going to give it to her.
Hard to get a decision.
But you don't want to pay that price on her by $9,300. And if you're going to pay the $470 because you think, listen, she's going to beat her, and even if it's close, she'll get the decision. You're confident in her. Take the decision. Aguilar is durable, man. She is like $2 steak durable. And I just feel like if you're going to take the Chinese prospect, and it's not the worst play in the world, don't pay the 470, dude. Take the decision. Take that 180. That's infinitely better.
We have Pingwan Liu taking on Martin Day. Pingwan Liu is 8,900 on DraftKings, minus 230 favorite. Day is 7,300 and plus 190. Martin Day is Max Holloway's buddy, Hawaii guy. I believe he's listed as 5-2 on the UFC's website. I think he's actually 9-2 though.
You always trust that UFC website.
I don't really care.
I don't know what it is.
Frankly, it's records. At the end of the day, we know records are pretty much useless in MMA. Like, I know it's important for these guys getting jobs and getting recognized by promotions, but like, we never look at a guy's record and just like, oh, well, this guy's lost 14 times. He must suck. No, like, it's who did you lose to? Who did you fight? Like, that's what really matters in all of this.
Who did you lose to? Who did you fight and when?
Legitimately, I just copy and paste those records because I don't give a shit.
Sure.
I really don't give a shit. Like, there's a little honesty. This is a tough one to break down. I think Lou's probably being a little bit overvalued here. I think it's going to be a competitive decision between the two of them, and it's Holloway's buddy. Holloway's in camp, getting ready for Ortega. I think the camp is probably full steam ahead in Hawaii right now, so that's a good thing for Martin Day. I think Day is a live dog here. Lou was able to like maintain control of the center of the octagon, land strikes, and pull off a relatively greasy decision over Damian Stasiak. I thought he won, but it was super close.
Was close, yeah.
And I think Martin Day can fight that fight as well. Ideally, I don't know if he's able to take him down. I think based on what I know from Holloway's obviously super well-rounded, but we haven't really seen that from Day. He kind of just seems like more of a brawler, stand-up kind of guy. I think Day is a live dog, but I think it's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be close, and it's a. We're in Asia. Maybe you get a little bit of home cooking, a little chicken fried rice for your old boy Ping Wam. But if I had to play one of these guys on DraftKings, it is Martin Day. But it's a tough call.
Yeah, I would avoid it as far as DraftKings goes. As far as moneyline goes, yeah, I don't love the 230, but I got to go with Ping Liu. Again, we got another Chinese prospect who's fighting in front of his hometown crowd, who the UFC wants to build these guys up. It wasn't like he's one of these Chinese reserve fighters that only fights on the Chinese cards. I think he made his debut against Stasiak in Germany.
He did.
That is something. And Stasiak's no joke, dude. Stasiak, black belt. Stasiak, durable guy. Stasiak, he's made improvements over the time, and he's almost like a gatekeeper of that lower echelon. And even though Liu, it's a tough fight, no doubt about it, it wasn't the cleanest fight in the world, he passed the test. He got past that tough gatekeeper type opponent. Now he gets Martin Day. Martin Day's a little bit tricky. Martin Day almost seems like a comfortable range fighter. He stays at range. He's a quick guy. He's an athletic guy. He seems to want to stay on the outside and just pick you off. But he doesn't seem to be super comfortable with pressure. He doesn't seem to be super comfortable with somebody that is going to close that gap on him. It almost seems like he doesn't have good distance management. He likes to stay on the outside. He's got long-rangey strikes. But that fight in Dana White's Contender Series, he fought Jamie Alvarez. Jamie Alvarez is a tough guy. Jamie Alvarez, ATT flyweight. Nothing spectacular. Has failed every single time he stood up to the elite level, but a serviceable flyweight. He looks okay staying at range, staying on the outside. But as soon as Jamie Alvarez wants to close in the distance, he does. And he clinches up with him. He presses him up against the cage. He can work his takedown game. It's just there. And I feel like Lou can do the same thing. Lou, I think, is, I'm not going to say the better striker, but he's the more technically sound striker. He's not as flashy, but I think he'll move in. I think he'll land enough strikes. I think he'll be able to close the distance and clinch up. I think he might even try to fool a couple takedowns. Keep in mind that we've been talking about the relatively low level of grappling amongst Chinese fighters. And Lou's another one of these guys that he's young enough. I think he's like 28 years old. He trains at a camp that, you don't know the level of grappling they got, but he survived on the ground with Damian Stasiak. And Damian Stasiak, not that bad. And that, to me, shows that there is something with this kid. Day is making his debut. He's another one of these failed UFC. The UFC Contender Series is designed for the winner. A winner that looks great that night could get a contract. It turns out to 3 guys every night get a contract, and half of them are dusty. And now we've seen a crop of guys didn't even win their fight on the Contender Series.
But they're like, ooh, we have a prospect to bloat up over in a local market.
Those guys that have lost their Contender Series fights that have made the UFC, whether it be Matt Bessette, whether it be
Austin Arnett.
Well, he just won one.
I know. But
there was somebody else. Regardless, some of these guys, it's like
Vince Morales.
what level are they operating at? So with Liu, it's like, yeah, he just beat Stasiak. Stasiak's a better level than this is. And whereas you could say Max Holloway's buddy, even though I'm picking Smolka in this upcoming fight, Smolka's Max Holloway's buddy, Russell Doan's Max Holloway's buddy. What happened to those guys, right? Sometimes just because you're so... Yeah, Chris Weidman's buddy, we all know who that is, the great Jean Vellante. Conor McGregor's buddy is Artem Lobov. So Martin Day being Max Holloway's buddy is not enough for me to think about putting money on him.
I'm just saying that the camp is in full swing. So
yeah, he's
probably getting some great training right now. That's all I'm saying.
Liu's got 2 teammates on the card from the Embo Academy, and I want to say he spent some time at Alpha Male too, but I don't want to comfortably say that, so I'll have to fact check it.
All right, let's move on. We got Yan Xiaonan taking on Sayuri Kondo. Xiaonan is 9,400 DraftKings and minus 450 favorite. Kondo is 6,800 and plus 360. A lot of this line, if we hadn't have seen Kondo absolutely flattened by Polyana Botello in her last time out, getting the shot to the body and just crumpling. 30 seconds, finished round 1. Then I think that affected the fact that Cynthia Calvillo ended up being an underdog against her because that gave that inflated her to a degree. That is also that has affected this line as well because there's like, well, she got finished by Botello. Botello went out last week, looked like trash. We know that these things don't always work that way in MMA. I think from what we've seen from Xiaonan, another technical striker. Going to keep it on the feet, looking to do it. But I just don't see the upside for her to score like a Song Yadong could score 120 points in this. It's just like for Yan Xiaonan to score that many points, she is going to have to land like 150 significant strikes in 3 rounds. Like that's basically what we're looking at here.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just think with her and with Zhang, I'm just going to take my chances that they win their decisions. Like that's what is the most, by the odds, that's the most likely outcome is for those two to win their fights by decision, and hope that Sayuri Kondo doesn't crumple like she did last time out. I think it's another clear like 30-27 victory for the local Chinese fighter here.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go in the exact same route. I think Yao Jinan, she looks like she could be a prospect. She looks like she got the goods. Again, it's a new generation of fighters, like a new crop of fighters that are coming out of China that a lot of them got good kickboxing because they got this Sanda and Wushu background, traditional martial arts, and now that they're learning how to wrestle and grapple a little bit, they're getting by. They're not competing at the highest level right now because the highest level are full of grappling killers, but these divisions are not full of that, and you can find opponents just like this. Sayuri Kondo has largely disappointed me in her UFC career so far. When she came into UFC, I actually thought she was half decent. I think she's like 13-1 as a kickboxer, tough, little undersized for the division, but you know, she'll be okay. She'll be able to out-hustle opponents with her volume striking, stick in their face. She takes on Chan Min Jian, who I think is like 20 years old, and that's a firefight. She wins a split decision, didn't look great, but got the win. I was picking her over Polyana Botello just because I thought she's a better striker. Paulie Botello did not look great against Pearl Gonzalez. Why would I back her here? And, you know, I got a little egg on my face because she lost in empathetic fashion in like 30 seconds. It was brutal. Now I got to say, I'm off the bandwagon. Again, she's a little small for the division, and she's a kickboxing stylist. She wants fights where she's going to stand with her opponents and exchange strikes. Yet, Chan Mi Jian, a raw, green striking specialist, gave her that. She barely won. And Polyana Botello, not a striking specialist, dusted her. So you don't really want to get behind her on there. When I look at her opponent, again, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Yan Xiaonan.
Yeah, it works.
Whatever you pronounce it as.
I don't know.
Yeah, she seems like she's got the goods. She seems like she's going to be a lot more fluent. I don't love the points. I don't love the $9,400 on DraftKings. No. I don't love the minus 450 because nothing in this game is ever super, you know, guarantee. 450, that's big. I mean, she's the biggest favorite on the card, second biggest favorite on the card, sorry, behind Song Yadong. But you just don't know what you're getting. Sayuri Kondo is, if she gives her a kickboxing match, then that's what she wants. That's what she wants to play to. The only one thing, this is a pass to me, pretty much all around, other than $6,800 on Kondo, you could do worse. Because if it is going to be a kickboxing battle, and she doesn't get blown out in 30 seconds like she did against
but who do you rather have? Do you want Kondo or do you want Aguilar with the wrestling upside? You don't have to roster 2 of them.
No.
So like you don't have. So it's like whether you make one decision or the other. maybe maybe the optimal lineup ends up being you have Kondo and Aguilar, but that's super unlikely. You're looking for two minus 450 favorites to drop the ball and lose in their home market.
Well, both of them got pros and cons, but if you're looking at Aguilar, you're looking at the fact that if she gets the takedowns and she grinds her a little bit and she ends up losing, she could get a decent amount of points. But if she does not get the takedowns, her striking will net her almost no points, and she'll get nothing. Whereas this girl could lose the decision and land 60 significant strikes. Yeah. And maybe get you 30 points out of it. And 30 points for $6,800 on a cash game, again, you could be doing worse.
But if Aguilar does get the takedowns,
so many bots. I know. You're right.
If she gets the takedowns, like, and she gets, say, 3 of them, there's a 15-point floor right there. Yeah. And then there's transitions and yada, yada, yada. If you're going that route, that's the decision. Did you say who you prefer out of the two of them?
Out of this fight?
Out of Aguilar and
Kondo.
Who is the better play? Because they're at the same price, basically.
I'm going to take Aguilar because we're talking theoretics on cash game plays. And after we've seen Kondo's last fight, you don't want to put her in a cash game. Exactly. 33 seconds. She could just at least with Aguilar, we know this girl can take a beating. We know this girl's probably going 15, win or lose. So there's a little more trust there.
We have Kevin Holland taking on John Phillips. Kevin Holland, 9,500 in DraftKings, minus 465 favorite. John Phillips is 6,700 and plus 370. Kevin Holland has pretty good gas tank from what we've seen. He's got a win over Jeff Neal, who's a surging kind of guy in the welterweight or middleweight. He's a middleweight division. He's been looking pretty good since he came here. And he's like, what did he do? He just kind of survived against him, got to round 3, closed out the show. John Phillips has absolutely no ground game.
But we all knew that.
We all knew that. It was worse than I think anybody taking on Charles. I think it was worse than anybody than we. I think it was worse than we even thought it was going to be. He scored 0 points. He was Bird literally came across, didn't even try to throw a strike, jumped down, took him down, and once he got to the ground, it was over. Yeah, this guy is useless. Can Kevin Holland get the fight to the ground? I know that's not usually his style. He's not much of a wrestler, and that's not his style. He's more of he's got a long frame, and he's a pretty durable guy, good gas tank, and a volume type of puncher type of guy. I'm sure he's not stupid. He probably looks at this guy and goes, oh, straight blast gym, eh? Yeah, that's a riot. You guys are really good on the ground. I've seen all the improvements from that gym over the years on the ground. Come on, Holland. One time, man. Just go for the takedown. Work on that jits.
No, yeah, his jits is not that bad. He's a long, lanky guy.
I know he's got some submissions, but it's just it doesn't take much to get the fight to the ground. And the only place that he can get hurt is on the feet against this guy. Well,
yeah, and they nicknamed him the White Mike Tyson for a reason because he's got a lot of power.
He throws heaters.
Yeah, but it's not even it's technical heaters. It is winging from the hip side heaters.
100%.
And that's dangerous for anybody. If Kevin Holland had ever been finished in his career, that's cause for concern because we look at this a lot, that those big, tall guys that have to stand upright, they're susceptible to the leg kick and they're susceptible for the big overhand right.
This guy just went to decision against Thiago Santos.
On short notice.
He beat by being able to take all of the early onslaught. Jeff Neal, who hits like a truck as well. This guy has shown that he's durable as hell.
Okay, 100%. He fought Thiago Santos and went the distance. B, he took the fight on short notice. C, Thiago Santos had just done a camp where he thought he might have to replace Brad Tavares and fight Israel Adesanya, didn't end up fighting, and then got an extended camp coming into this short notice fight with Kevin Holland. D, he had to go to Brazil in order to take said short notice replacement fight against Thiago Santos on a full camp in Brazil. And he lasted the distance. And Thiago Santos didn't look good. And I thought, geez, he exposed him. And then his next fight, fuck, the guy's actually good. Kevin Holland survived against a very dangerous guy who has the middleweight record for finishes, who could fight at 205 and not look completely out of place. Holland's durable, and that's what I said about the fact that if he had ever been finished, I'd be worried, but he can take it. And the fact is that he's got something like 6 or 7 inches on the White Mike Tyson John Phillips here. So Phillips, in order to close the distance to land those bombs, is gonna have to he's gonna take a shot.
Yeah.
And where you said, because yeah, the way to win this fight is Holland
Take him down immediately
and beats him. Can he take him down straight up clean?
Probably.
Probably. But even if he can't, Phillips is a brawler. Phillips is going to get in your face, and he's going to have a trepid pace, and he's going to swing some hammers. And
So grab the clinch, look for a trip.
yeah, he will wind up, miss one punch, and trip himself to the ground. Look at hockey fights. Look at a prime back in the day. Who were the two best? Wade Blaydes versus George Barrows, right? Any hockey fight, you look at like 95% of them. Can either guy take down the other guy? I don't know, maybe, probably not. They don't even know takedowns. But the fight always hits the ground because when you're brawling somebody...
And whoever lands on top has the illusion of winning the fight.
Always.
In the crowd, right?
Always. But what happens is when you're in close quarters and you're swinging for your life and there's very little thinking going involved, you end up just falling to the ground at some point. If Holland falls down and ends up on top, this is in the bag. If he falls down and gets on the bottom, still pretty good. And if it just happens to go to the ground, it'll play in his favor. If it happens to stay standing, you got to deal with that initial John Phillips rush. But beyond that, what? Yeah. He had 2 fights in 2017 canceled, didn't fight all year, injured, banged up, gets brought in for a local show just to kind of get the crowd hot, and gets smoked out by Charles Bird. And now he's getting this fight with Kevin Holland. It's a weird fight just because you got 2 non-Southeast Asian fighters on this card fighting each other. I don't understand what the matchmaking is behind it. But John Phillips, there's no purpose of having him on the UFC roster. John Phillips could make some money and challenge for a world title in BKB against Mike Perry or Chris Lieben. He would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But at this level, in this spot, against a mixed martial arts fighter, I don't see it.
No.
Give me Holland, 9,500. I don't like. But again, if you loved Davi Ramos and you knew he was going to get the Davi Ramos way safer than this.
Holland and Yadong are the guys I'm
But sometimes when you know, you know. And
yeah,
he should get the win.
Yadong and Holland are the guys I'm paying up for. I think they have the highest ceiling from what I can see. Maybe one of these female fighters that are a little bit overpriced, in my opinion, can surprise, but those are the guys that I would be targeting. And finally, we got Louis Smolka making his UFC return. He's taking on the name so nice, you got to say it twice, SUMUDAERJI. Or as on his board, I just called him SUMUDAERJI squared.
I think his name is just SUMUDAERJI. There is no SUMUDAERJI.
I've seen SUMUDAERJI all over the place. Double SUMUDAERJI.
No, you know why you've seen that?
Why?
Because he doesn't have a last name. So they're like, well, what do we put? I don't know. Let's put his first name again. It's just twice, just to have 2 names.
That's why he's SUMUDAERJI squared.
He's like Cher.
I will refer.
He's like Cher. He doesn't have a first name.
I will refer to him as SUMUDAERJI squared moving forward until I get further clarification. Anyway, we got Louis Smolka is 8,800 on DraftKings, minus 200 favorite. SUMUDAERJI squared is 7,400 plus 170. I think Smolka absolutely wrecks this guy. This guy is a flashy striker, exciting kind of guy. I'd like to see him fight somebody with a little bit less experience, that's for sure. Because like I think he could put on a show, that's for sure. Like he's got some flashy striking techniques. He's coming off of a loss in his last fight against a guy named something called a Hao Bin Ma, which is not exactly a great look. I know that this guy is super flashy, exciting, but it's like Smokey's fought some good guys. He had a big time like drinking problem, and it sounds like he's really cleared that up. He got released by the UFC now, and like he was really struggling with his weight cut, and he had some issues and stuff like that. But like it seems like I did listen to his interview with James Lynch. He seemed to be in a good mind space, and he's won his last 3 pretty easily in his last 3 times out.
Yeah. I hear you.
So I think he rolls against this guy. He gets the fight to the ground, and he's going to use his superior grappling to get the nod. And he's a guy I want to roster as well because of the path, which is utilizing grappling.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Louis Smolka all day, $8,800, willing to play it. 200, definitely willing to play it. Louis Smolka, we started talking about this at the top of the show. The guys that would have the key grappling advantages were going to win these fights against people that would just be outmatched. Louis Smolka, when he is at his best, is a damn fine prospect. I don't know if you consider him a prospect anymore. He's had a rough run. He's a damn fine fighter. His issue is that he almost always fights to his opponent's level. And it's an issue because he fights lower-end guys, and he fights like a lower-end guy. And he gets caught, and his grappling is legit. Like, you look what he did against Ben Nguyen, and it's like, this guy just floats when he's on top. He is ground and pound, ferocious. His submission game, on point. The fight with Paddy Holohan, his wrestling, I mean, It's functional, but he's a tall, lanky guy, so he kind of uses that leverage to his benefit. Like, the guy's on point. His striking, I don't love it, but he's got a long jab. He doesn't have a long reach for a tall guy, but it's there. The kicks, they're okay. He gets really lackadaisical in there at times, and there's no sense of urgency, and he almost always gets outworked by guys that oftentimes should not even be in these fights with him, but he fights to his opponent level. When I see this SUMUDAERJI square fight, I think SUMUDAERJI is exciting, talented, aggressive striker. And we've talked about this all night long. Song Yadong, he's the same thing. Song KENAN, he's the same thing. Pingyu Liu, he's the same thing. They're young, aggressive strikers. They're going to move forward. You got to hope that SMOLKA doesn't think to himself, I'm going to strike with this guy, and gets himself engaged into a back and forth tussle with this guy that might outpoint him, might outwork him, and might get the decision because it's a hometown setting. So SMOLKA needs to just take the fight to the ground. But assuming he does that, like you mentioned, good space, not drinking anymore, 3-fight winning streak, realizes he's got the ground advantage. The Last Samurai's got to pull something here. And he's got the tools to dust this fool out of here and score big. So yes, I would like to roster him. I would like to have some shares. I just hope that his head is in the right place. And as you mentioned, a good interview with James Lynch. And in fact, it seems like he is in a better place. The move from flyweight to bantamweight always makes you a little bit worried. But it could really help this guy, dude, because he was tall for flyweight.
He was struggling every weight cut as well.
And he was struggling. And the problem is when you're struggling in the weight cut and now you're not going out with the guys and you're not hanging out and you're just so reserved to, I can only eat the small piece of boiled chicken and the small serving of salad. When you live your life like that, you kind of fall off the rails. And it looked like at times SMOLKA had the goods. He's headlining fights for the UFC. It looks like he's a talented prospect. And then at other times, he just does not look in it. But he's fought in former world title challengers. He's fought in, the upper echelon of the sport. And for the most part, he always comes away with showing some glimpses of what could have been. And he just needs to work his way back up and fight shit guys, which he has been. And he's been winning. And he's finished all 3 of those guys as well, I believe. This is just a continuation of that, right? Just keep moving in the right direction. This fight hits the ground and SMOLKA is on top. It's done. And I've got to assume with a low-level fight, even if he gets lit up the first round, even if he gets lit up the first 2 rounds, what was that fight? Richie Voskalik versus Louis Smolka. Dude, the kid's all over him. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Richie wins the first 2 rounds, and then Smolka just sweet chin musics him in the third. Like, he's just got to find the opening, and he's very talented performer. He's just got to do what he's capable of doing, and like we said, mindset, maybe that's the key for him, and I think he gets the victory here. So give me Louis Smolka. I think he scores big. DK, good play.
Chuck versus Tito.
Chuck versus Tito. Interesting story there. So my buddy disagrees, but I remember it like it was Christmas morning. Chuck versus Tito was the first pay-per-view I ever bought. Or Chuck versus Tito 2. So, Chuck versus Tito was the first bet I ever made. And the first bet I ever made was a losing bet. I bet Tito Ortiz to beat Chuck the second time around. I don't know. I thought Chuck was done back then. But Tito loses. That was the first bet I ever made in the first loss. And you know what? Better to start off on a loss because you learn and you get better as things go on. But that fight means a lot to me. It's a terrible card. I'm going to buy it just because I feel that I have to. But the card's bad. Like, they should have just made it a decent card. Like, originally when they were joking around and they were saying, oh, Stephan Bonner, Keith Jardine. And
Stephan Bonner probably wouldn't be able to make it right now. Let's just say that.
Yeah, Keith Jardine, Chris Lieben. I don't know.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? Like, it
if they were going to have, like 2 guys that shouldn't be fighting,
Crazy
the whole
Horse.
card should not be fighting, I guess, if you want to go down that. Just take us down take us down a road or down memory road, I guess.
Yeah, but if I asked you at this stage in your,
I literally don't care whatsoever about watching this fight. To be honest.
At this stage in your consumption of MMA, if I told you Chuck and Tito were fighting, which is still a Bellator headliner, however you look at it, but the rest of the card, I don't really give a shit to see Gleison Tebow, Efren Escudero. I just don't really care.
It's probably the most competitive, highest level
That's a
of
good
MMA
fight,
on the card.
man. That's a good fight.
It is, but it's just like,
yeah,
that's an early prelim on a crappy card.
I just want to consume Bob Sapp. I want to see, Josh Neer beat some local Kansas boy. I just want to see.
Jail?
Neer? No, he went on the bare knuckle boxing show.
Okay, good.
Yeah, dude.
Didn't he have some sort of charge against him recently?
Well, he beat up that big guy in his gym, remember? Remember that?
Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, some other degenerate in the MMA space. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them, but you should just book them all and put them on a card,
Like
right?
Tito's knocking out or is finishing Chuck, I would think. Like Chuck, do you think he's sandbagging? Because like him hitting those pads has looked like abysmal.
I'm going Chuck.
Kent Carter asked me if
Probably a bad call.
Kent Carter asked me if he's just like, have you seen?
Oh, yeah, we got to wrap this up. But I could talk about this for a long time.
Said, have you seen Chuck? Have you seen Chuck hitting the pads? And I said he looks more like Kent Carter's next opponent than Tito's. Like he looks so bad that like he shouldn't be in there. Like we see the last time we saw him, this guy can't take any sort of damage.
Here's the official prediction.
Who's winning?
Chuck Liddell's winning.
What?
My 2 main reasons. Okay. Well, I got 3 main reasons. First of all, he's in fucking Tito's head, dog. He's already beat him twice. Tito goes that night every night thinking about Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell, he's just looking for a quick payday, but he's got a lot of pride, so he's not looking to take a dive. He's looking to go out there and he's looking to beat Tito Ortiz. So I'm gonna get the effort out of Chuck. I'm willing to go with that. Second thing is Chuck Liddell's old. Chuck Liddell hasn't fought in a long time. Chuck Liddell's probably in really bad shape. The last time we saw Chuck have to get in shape, he was real drunk before the Rich Franklin fight. Booze bag, coke bag, party bag. He says to Dana, Dana, give me one more fight. Dana says, no way. Get in shape and show me that you can fight. And he took it seriously for like 2 months. And this guy got in insane shape. And in the Rich Franklin fight, if you remember, his last actual fight, he was in phenomenal shape. Problem is he can't take a punch anymore. And Rich happens to capitalize. But Tito's boxing's atrocious, like bad. Everything is very telegraphed. He's not fast. He doesn't close distance. He just kind of sits there, has no footwork, and he has no range. So I don't really know that if he hits Chuck Liddell, he's probably going to knock Chuck Liddell out. But he's not a great striker, so he's not going to all of a sudden be a great striker and catch Chuck Liddell necessarily. But he's a better wrestler. Is he? Chuck Liddell's takedown defense is insane good. And Tito's
we have no idea how good he is.
Tito's knees are gone, and he can't
his back
physically.
is gone.
His neck is gone. Everything's gone. He can't physically drop levels to physically complete a blast double, even if he wanted to. So the wrestling's out of this. So we got 2 guys.
Still enough to beat Chael.
Chael,
if you think that fight was real,
fair, but Chael,
I don't know if it was.
Chael was on top, and then it ended up blowing it. He has him in a front headlock.
I know.
And ends up blowing it.
These old
Chuck's
guy,
not gonna let that happen.
These old guy fights
Chuck's more mobile.
always end up
His
being
footwork's
really
better.
weird. Like think about nobody called Hoist Gracie knocking out Ken Shamrock.
You need him in the balls.
Weird stuff happens in these types of fights, and like the whole lead up to this fight has been really weird. I'm expecting to see something really, really weird. Like I don't think I'll be playing it, but you're playing Chuck.
I am going to play Chuck. I was trying to think of a wager in my head that I could do, but like, I ain't dyeing my hair like Tito if he wins. I don't know, dude. Chuck's gonna beat him. You just watch. And if Chuck loses and Tito wins, my gambling career has come full flip-flop fucking circle. Whereas I bet Tito 10 years ago, 11 years ago, Jesus Christ. I bet Tito 11 years ago, and 11 he can't beat Chuck on his best day, on Chuck's worst day. And 11 years later, when they're both geriatric, it's like, you can beat him now. It's crazy how times change.
Yeah, you just may be cursed. If Tito Ortiz wins this fight, hopefully they don't have a 4th one because you'll lose more money by picking whoever. Because you're just cursing this fight.
Because I'm just flipping.
You're just historically cursed.
It's oh shit. Why am I drawing a blank here? Who do you do this with all the time? Beat Alex Morono with that vicious knockout. Nico Price.
But I got Price right. I got the Price. I got Price right for the first time.
Price was right the last time? Okay,
Last time.
because shit, you always go the wrong side of that.
All right, that more or less wraps it up for us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to Cody Saftic breaking down all of the fights with me. Thanks to Chad Dow for doing all the sweet cuts behind the cameras there for both of those guys. I am Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.
Mayo experience! Experience!